When a reliable employee failed to show up for work, his boss got worried and raised an alarm. 2 officers were immediately dispatched to his house. What they found would haunt them for the rest of their lives.
I realised then it was a human pelt. It was the skin minus the head. A full skin just hanging from the top door frame. Looked past it and saw a torso on the ground without a head and without any genitalia.
But this was just the beginning of the horror. Hello guys, welcome to CrimeCity. Today we'll be looking at the horrifying case of Kathrine Knight. She skinned, decapitated, and boiled her boyfriend to feed his kids. Kathrine Mary Knight was not your ordinary girl. She was rude, vulgar, and was not afraid to throw a punch at anyone who crossed her. Born in Tenterfield, Australia, Kathrine grew up in a chaotic, dysfunctional environment filled with violence and infidelity. Before she was even born, her mom Barbara was involved in a scandalous affair that tore her family of 4 children apart. She then ran away with her lover, a man named Ken Knight. These two eventually had terrifying little Kathrine. Ken was known to be a violent alcoholic who mistreated Barbara in front of his children. When Kathrine was younger, she was a good-natured girl who loved animals and playing with dolls. Then as she got older, she started experiencing extraordinary rage and would snap at the slightest provocation. She would later claim that she was violated by her older brothers until she was about 11 and started fighting back. In school, Kathrine was known as a bully who would terrorize kids and, on one occasion, even a teacher. She left school at the age of 15, never having learned how to read or write, and soon began what she described as her dream job, working at a local slaughterhouse. She started out as an animal gutter, but was quickly promoted and given her own set of butcher knives. It's been reported that Kathrine loved her job so much that she would even hang her butcher knives over her bed.
And I said to Kathy, "Why do you have knives in the bed or hang them on the wall?" She said, shrugged her shoulders, "They're there in case I need them."
Terrifyingly, this opportunity would come, and in the most gruesome way. A wedding and an attempted murder. While working at the slaughterhouse, Kathrine started dating one of her co-workers known as David Kellett, a raging alcoholic who, much like her dad, was also prone to violence. Already used to such an environment, Kathrine was not the kind to back down from a fight, and so whenever David got into one of his drunken scuffles, she would often join in and back him up with her fists. In 1974, Kathrine managed to convince David to marry her, and on the day of the wedding, he showed up completely drunk and probably missed something that Kathrine's mother told him just before the wedding.
"You better watch this one or she'll f***ing kill you. Stir up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you are f***ed. Don't ever think of playing up on her. She'll f***ing kill you."
But he soon discovered that he should have paid more attention to this warning. That very night, Kathrine tried to choke him when he fell asleep after consummating their marriage. She would later say that she expected them to be intimate 4 to 6 times, but David only did it 3 times. Luckily, David was able to fight her off. But even after seeing what his new bride was capable of, he still stayed with her, a decision that he would soon come to regret. One time, when David was home late from a darts competition, a heavily pregnant Kathrine set his clothes and shoes on fire before hitting him in the back of the head with a frying pan. He ended up in the hospital with a severely fractured skull, but again did not leave Kathrine or press charges against her. Their marriage actually lasted for 10 years, and they even had 2 daughters. But one day, David had enough and ran off with another woman, leaving Kathrine with a newborn baby. Kathrine just lost it after this, and she did something completely unbelievable. She left her 2-month-old baby in the middle of a railway track to be killed. Luckily, a homeless man heard the poor baby crying and went to save her minutes before the train passed. Kathrine was arrested and taken to a medical facility where she was diagnosed with postnatal depression. However, she managed to get herself discharged the next day and went on a rampage, threatening to kill anyone that had helped her husband get away. She slashed a woman's face with a knife and then held a young boy hostage until the police finally disarmed her and sectioned her in a psychiatric hospital. She stayed there for 2 months, during which time she told a nurse that she had intended to kill the mechanic who had repaired her husband's car, and then kill her husband and his mother if the police didn't stop her. Crazy. A string of tumultuous relationships. After separating from David Kellett, Kathrine didn't stay single for long and started dating a local miner called David Saunders. At first, things were going great between them, and they even had a daughter together. But then it started getting crazy.
We went out and cut his dog's throat.
Was the dog dead?
It was a clean cut, they said.
And that was not the only insane incident. One time during an argument, Kathrine reportedly hit Saunders in the face with an iron and then proceeded to attack him with a pair of scissors. After this, Saunders knew that he would not get out of the relationship alive unless he went into hiding. It didn't take long for Kathrine to move on and get into yet another relationship, this time with a coworker from the slaughterhouse by the name of John Chillingworth. They stayed together for 3 years and had a son called Eric. This was actually the only uneventful relationship that Kathrine ever had, but only because she was having an affair with a popular miner named John Price, who tragically would not be able to escape Kathrine's clutches alive. The romance with John started out well, and soon Kathrine moved in with him and his 2 children. However, the happiness didn't last for long, as Kathrine began to show her true colors. And when John refused to marry her, she got him fired.
To get revenge, she got the video camera and she videoed a first aid kit she thought that he'd stolen from the mine. She took the video of it to the mine's management. And Pricey got sacked for it, lost his job over it.
Although John kicked her out of his house after this, their toxic relationship continued to the point that John started losing friends because of her. On February 29th, 2000, John went to the police to get a restraining order against Kathrine after she held a knife at him during one of their fights.
They'd had a row. She'd held a knife up at him, and he fled the house thinking that she's going to stab him. And he went over the road to his mates and said, she's come at me with a knife.
Then, that afternoon, John reportedly went to his friends and told them something quite chilling. Despite his friends asking him not to go home, John felt that he had to because of his children. He went home at around 11 p.m., never to be seen alive again. House of Horror. Earlier that evening, Kathrine had sent John's kids away for a sleepover at a friend's house, and then bought herself new black lingerie for what seemed like a special night. She arrived home just after 11 p.m. and found John sleeping. She watched a bit of TV, took a shower, and then headed off to bed. She woke John up and they became intimate, after which he drifted back to sleep, unaware of the nightmare that was just about to befall him.
I knew Mr. Price before. I knew that he was a hard worker and reliable man, so it was a bit unusual for him not to turn up for work and not to make a phone call.
Officers arrived at 8:10 a.m., and when they discovered that both the front and back doors of John's house were locked, they used a crowbar to get in. But the moment they stepped inside that house, they realized that they walked into what could only be described as a real-life horror scene.
There was something hanging, blocking my entry into the hallway of the house. I thought it looked like some type of blanket or some sort of covering that had been placed up on the archway. So I remember I used my left hand to push it aside, and immediately I could feel coldness coming on my left arm. So I looked down and my left arm was just covered in blood.
It turned out that what the officer thought was a blanket or curtain was actually human skin. It had been expertly removed in one piece and was hanging from a meat hook. But this was just the beginning of Kathrine's sick doings.
I could look through there, from there into the lounge room, and I saw what appeared to be a human being, or what was left. And so it was at that point that I'd realized, what had happened.
After they realized that they were looking at the most gruesome murder scene, the officers tried as hard as they could to not panic or vomit.
There was blood everywhere. A line of blood out from the door into the kitchen area. There's a pot on the stove. I think I might have even said to Scotty, I'll give you one guess where the head is.
Horrifically, the officer was right. The skinless head of John Price was found inside the pot, along with an array of vegetables. The table had 2 places set, each with a plate full of vegetables and meat, and with a note next to each plate featuring the names of John's children. Police found Kathrine lying unconscious in bed, having taken an overdose of pills. She was rushed to the hospital where she was treated and later transferred to a psychiatric ward.
Can't remember anything.
Do you recall yourself going to bed?
horrifyingly.
At first, Kathrine claimed that she couldn't remember anything that happened that night, but the chilling details of what happened that night would soon be revealed. Night of Terror. According to the police, Kathrine started attacking John with a butcher knife at around 12 a.m. Evidence showed that John woke up in the middle of the attack and tried to get away, but Kathrine chased after him.
But as you go out towards the lounge room, this stain's getting heavier and heavier. Big swipes on the wall where he's soaked himself and sliding against the wall. It's also getting lower, as if he's sort of... And it comes to culmination at the foyer where he's just succumbed to his injury.
John managed to open the front door and get outside, but he either stumbled back inside or was dragged back into the hallway, where he tragically bled to death. An autopsy revealed that he had been jabbed at least 37 times on his entire body, with many of the wounds extending into vital organs. She then skinned him and decapitated his body before cooking some and serving them to his children.
She's cut that into 5 different steaks and she's cooked them, baked them in the oven. 2 of them were on one plate, 2 on another plate, and the 5th one was out for the dog, I believe. But it wasn't touched.
After the murder, Kathrine reportedly went to town and withdrew $1,000 from John's account at an ATM. But despite all the evidence against her, Kathrine maintained that she was innocent, only offering to plead guilty to a lesser charge of manslaughter. However, her offer was denied and she was charged with first-degree murder. Her trial was set for October 2001, but before it even started, she changed her plea to guilty without even offering an explanation as to why she did it. A judge later sentenced her to life imprisonment and ordered that her papers be marked never to be released.
Today, she became the first woman to be jailed for life under truth in sentencing laws, ensuring she'll die behind bars. She's been branded a danger to the community, capable of murdering anyone who crosses her.
This case is one of the most horrifying and disturbing cases that I've ever come across. And what makes it even more terrifying is the fact that Kathrine actually knew what she was doing. It was not a heat of the moment thing. She had planned and calculated everything, including feeding John's flesh to his children. How evil and twisted can someone be to come up with such a plan? I'd like to read your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to CrimeCity. In the meantime, thanks for watching and see you next time.